The hill in picture is Spioenkop. During these past weeks, we've made a series of videos on the South African War leading up to the Battle of Spioenkop. And in this episode, using some simple maps, we're going to summarize the story so far. My name is Ron Gold, and like the others, this video is made at Three Tree Hill Lodge. The South African War of 1899-1902 was contested between the two landlocked Boer republics of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State, and the two British Crown colonies of Natal and the Cape. Don't be fooled by the size of the Cape. The only worthwhile part at that time is a narrow coastal strip, out of reach, effectively, of a mounted army of Boers. So, shortly after the outbreak of war, Boer forces moved initially to the west and contented themselves with besieging the diamond mining town of Kimberley and a bit further north, the trading centre of Mafeking. The main theatre of the war in the early weeks was always going to be Natal, because of its proximity to the Boer republics. And in the next map, we're going to focus on this top northwestern corner of Natal. When the Boers issued their ultimatum to the British on the 9th of October, the First Army Corps, which had been on immediate standby back in the UK, began to move down to the south coast ports. 45,000 men, and they will be led by General Sir Redvers Buller, holder of the VC. Buller had sent an advisory to British officers in Natal, and his advisory was, do not place any men north of the Potgieter River, for you will find yourselves in a salient. This map shows us the top northwestern corner of Natal. The western boundary, the Drakensberg Range, with the Boer Republic of the Free State. And for the first and only time in our history, the eastern boundary is the Buffalo River, with the Transvaal on the east bank. It forms a triangle. The base of the triangle, the Potgieter River, is what General Buller was so concerned about. Boer forces rapidly begin their invasion from the north, as illustrated by these green lines. Transvaalers initially, and within a few days of the outbreak of war, on the 20th of October, the first battle is fought here at Dundee, becomes known as the Battle of Talana. The following day, Battle of Elandslaagte. 4 or 5 days later, Battle of Rietfontein. And on the 30th of October, the Battle of Ladysmith, which is a significant defeat for the British Army and will result in Ladysmith becoming besieged. And then the Boers hesitate, fatally. At a time when Natal lay open, all they needed to do was to continue pushing down, following the railway line, and possibly even taken the port of Durban. But they don't. And that hesitation will cost them, because British reinforcements began to land in Durban by the 12th of November, and it was only 2 days later that the Boers sent a raiding party in some strength from Ladysmith further south. The day after they cross the river, they ambush the armoured train here at Freer, capturing Winston Churchill, and 1 week later fight what for the Boers will prove to be the final offensive battle of the war at Willow Grange, where they come up against British reinforcements that were coming up the line from Durban. It's a decisive victory for the Boers. But despite the victory, realizing that they're outnumbered, they fall back to their defensive line of the Potgieter River. After the Battle of Willow Grange, the Boers fell back, and it appeared that their hopes had been dashed, their hopes of a victory in this war. But there had been a change. A fear was growing back in Whitehall that the Russians were up to something. You may have heard of the Great Game, the squabbles over the Balkans, Afghanistan, India corridor. And there was a fear that the Russians might break out again, taking advantage of Britain's preoccupation in southern Africa. This would have been an enormous problem for Britain, which did not have the capacity realistically anyway, to fight 2 wars. The Boers know this. Boer military intelligence is good. And the Boers believe if they can continue to humiliate the British Army, perhaps European powers will inadvertently come to their assistance. And how best to humiliate the British? To force the besieged garrisons, in particularly that of Ladysmith, to surrender. So the Boers, under their new and dynamic general, the 37-year-old Louis Botha, prepared their defences on the north bank of the Thukela River, opposite the rail bridge at Colenso. The Boers are fairly certain that the British will want to effect a breakthrough near the rail bridge, and they were correct. And General Buller launches his division strength force, 16,000 men, against Boer positions at Colenso on the 15th of December, and once again suffers a resounding defeat. The Battle of Colenso is a story for another day, but one or two things. It will launch Louis Botha into the public eye as a man to be reckoned with, as an instinctive military genius, might be a bit strong, but certainly a very capable general. It'll be the beginning of the end for Redvers Buller, who will begin to make a series of blunders and effectively destroy his own career over the next 6 weeks. Having suffered the loss, Buller now decides that he will not attempt to break through in this area again, but rather move to the Upper Thukela, to the Potgieter's drift. A drift in South African parlance is a ford on the river, where the bottom will support wagon wheels and where the flow of the current will hopefully not be too strong. And in our next map, we're going to look at the Upper Thukela. This sketch map is of the area we call the Upper Thukela. The Thukela River flowing from west to east and makes one enormous loop here. To give you some idea, the distance from here to the end of the loop is about 2.5 miles, say 4 kilometers. Potgieter's drift, the ford we were talking about, is there. General Buller, from his camp at Freer, which is about 40 kilometers away to the right of this map, to the east, had been reinforced by the 5th Division under General Sir Charles Warren, a further 15,000 men. And with 22,000 of the 30,000 men now available to him, Buller begins to move to the west, approaching this area from off the map on the right-hand side. During his movement to the west, he decided that he would attempt to break the Boer line with a 2-pronged attack. And the left-hand and larger of the 2 forces, the left-hand prong, if you like, would be commanded by General Warren. Buller will make his headquarters here, on a high promontory called Mount Alice, from which point he has a fantastic view of Potgieter's drift and the hills on the far side, which we'll deal with in a little more detail later. General Warren continues, moving, unfortunately for everyone, ponderously slowly. And 4 days later, he would effect a crossing at the Trichardt's drift. Initially move a little to the west, where his mounted brigade would in fact open up the Ladysmith Free State Road by ambushing some Boers. General Warren decided not to take advantage of that, and instead to make a routine infantry attack on the features that we can see. Warren decided that he would advance up the sloping plateau. It slopes down from the high position here, down to the river, and it becomes known as the Rangeworthy Hills. And on the 20th, and again on the 21st of January, his forces would advance from the river, but be held by Boers in positions on the rear of the Rangeworthy Hills. Having suffered over 400 casualties, General Warren decides that what he would rather do is to take the highest feature in the area, Spioenkop, and use it as an artillery platform. Some explanation is now necessary. The highest point here, Spioenkop, is about 1,450 meters, say 4,800 feet. Just to the east is a little hillock, a little koppie called Aloe Knoll, and to the northwest, another little one called Conical Hill. They all form part of what we call Spioenkop. Further to the east, the Twin Peaks, To the northwest, we have Green Hill, Three Tree Hill, and way over here, Bastion Hill. The Boer defensive positions are now shown with these green lines on the back edge of the Rangeworthy Hills, on Green Hill, and on Spioenkop and the Twin Peaks. General Warren, remember, has now decided to take Spioenkop and use it as an artillery platform. And how is he going to do that? There are Boers on Spioenkop. They were going to see him coming miles away. Well, the only way you can do it realistically is a night attack, and we're going to speak of that in a little more detail next time. But suffice to say at this point that on the evening of the 23rd of January, British troops will move from Three Tree Hill and from a marshalling point further south, cross the valley onto the natural ramp we call the spur, and make their way up onto the hill. And next week, we will get into the Battle of Spioenkop proper.